again to Liz for the support that Shorebird are providing to the North Yorkshire branch of the CIPD in providing webinars. It's the second one that we've done, and getting a very good response from people as well, so thank you very much for that. You'll notice on this slide that we're now using the new CIPD logo and branding. One feature of this is the letter P, where you can see that it is formed, the hole in the letter P is formed into a little speech bubble. This is very significant. It's because the HR profession is all about communication. It's about listening, it's about talking to people, it's about finding the things which are relevant to people, which are going to encourage them to work for an organization and work more effectively, work smarter rather than harder. And that all fits in rather well with today's webinar. On the subject of communication, I would like to encourage you, please, to use the comment box, and I will attempt to respond as we go along, or you can save questions until the end, or if you want to, you can contact me by email as well. Well, if we go on to the next slide, one of the things about the new CIPD branding is that people like me have to tell you that I am not an employee of the CIPD. I'm a volunteer branch chair, and on this slide I can explain my whole career and what it is that I do. So the cartoon on the on the right-hand side is me, but in previous days, I've lost a lot of weight since then. I must point that out. I've lost a lot of weight since then. But that is me. Also, my trainer tells me there isn't quite as much hair there as anymore either, but never mind. I started my career in 1981. I worked in Yorkshire. I'm from Yorkshire, and started in the NHS, did all of my CIPD qualifications, although they weren't called the CIPD then, it was more the IPM. And then moved off around the world. I've worked in most areas of the world apart from South America, and came back into the UK at the beginning of the 21st century and did a master's degree, and then ended up setting up my own consultancy called Abacida. Since then, I have become an ambassador for the National Training Awards. I'm also involved with the Higher Education Initiatives, school governor, chairman of the branch of the CIPD, and I'm on the CIPD's National Council as well. Abacida is a little bit different. The word itself means to put into logical order or deal with the rudiments of a subject. The subject we put into logical order is employee management, and we do that by providing information, products, services, and expertise. The Simpsons logo is because we worked with the Simpsons on the development of a range of health and safety education resources which feature those characters. It's the only business-to-business product that Gracie Films have approved. We've also worked with Bloomberg on developing news-based case study management development tools as well. And BBC, I'm regular on the BBC local radio, also done national and regional television news programs as well. The four logos you can see there. Abacida, we have our information. We publish a lot of articles across a range of different websites. The products, Workplace Learning Center, we have one of the largest catalogues of learning resources that is on the internet. H2R is the employee management software which we have developed, which is available on, or shortly be available as an app as well for tablets and mobile phones. And Workplace Insurance Center is where we looked at the results we were getting from delivering training, and then noticed that if we delivered training, we could reduce the number of accidents that an organization would have, the number of near misses that they had, took those statistics to a series of insurance companies, and as a result of that got commitments from them that if people could demonstrate the training they were delivered in health and safety, they would also qualify for reductions in their employers and public liability insurance. And we've extended that into other forms of insurance related to other business activities as well, all based around delivering training which helps improve the performance of people as they work. So that is what I do for a living. I spend my volunteering time with the CIPD and run one of the largest geographic areas in North Yorkshire. We have about 1,800 members out of 135,000 across the world who are members of the CIPD. Now, today we're going to talk about the predictions for 2015 and also some of the resolutions that we think within the CIPD organizations should perhaps be making to alleviate any of the risks of those predictions and also guarantee some of the benefits. Now, in creating the webinar, I've looked at the predictions that lots of different types of organizations are making about 2015 and tried to identify the common trends as logic suggests that these are the predictions most likely to come to fruition. As we're in an election year, I've tried to analyse the predictions of the major political parties as well, and then realised that these were mainly promises of what they might do if they win the election. On that front, the one thing that all of the organisations I've looked at are in agreement about is that they do not know who will win, but there is a possibility that we will have another coalition government of some form. I've tried to be aware of this, aware of the bias that the agenda of many organisations has when it analyses data about what may happen, and tried to make sure that I steer clear of anything that might be interpreted as self-fulfilling. Obviously, there are various different trade unions which are predicting all sorts of things, and one of the processes they go through is predict that people are going to need pay rises, therefore people put in claims for higher wages. As a result of that, more employers give higher wages. Most of all, I've tried to avoid simply presenting a series of data tables and focus on those predictions that will impact what HR people will have to do or have to change how they operate in 2015. We've taken organisations, central banks, the Bank of England, the Federal Reserve, its equivalent in the United States, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the European Central Bank. Looked at charities, organisations that aren't necessarily involved in business, like Oxfam and UNICEF, and also charities like the Prince's Trust, which have a very strong presence in the business world and are helping lots of people come into employment. Professional bodies, obviously what the CIPD is predicting, the CIM, the Chartered Management Institute, CIM, Chartered Institute of Marketing, the Institute of Directors, and the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, along with many others. There are lots of predictions that come out of the British Chamber of Commerce, and also the CBI and the EEF, the Chartered Confederation of British Industry and Electron Engineering Employers Federation. There are specific organisations like Nesta and IHS and YouGov, which do lots of research. Not all of those are based in the UK. And then the big consultancies, what they are suggesting as well as universities, obviously looked at the BBC, people like CNN, those sorts of things, and also the trade unions, TUC. So it's been a lot of reading and looking around and sort of finding out. It's been very interesting looking at the differences, but also identifying where people think things are going to be the same. I thought, seeing as we are part of the United Kingdom and we exist within a global world, that we need to look at, first of all, what is happening in the world and how that will impact the United Kingdom. So, if anybody's got any suggestions or any sort of their own predictions, please just feel free to sort of put them into the chat box and we'll talk about them as we go along. But what I'm recognizing in terms of the global predictions for the global economy are that these ones here. I've selected the top 10. So countdown, we should have some countdown music here. Yeah, I will do my best for a Tony Blackburn impression now. Smashy and Nicey, we could be Smashy and Nicey. Right. The number one, we'll start with number one because the United States will power ahead with its economy. It's still going to be the biggest economy in the world, but also the UK is predicted to grow. George Osborne, our Chancellor, has predicted by 2020 that the UK economy will be as large as the United States and may even have surpassed it. However, that is dependent upon him still living in number 11 Downing Street, and of course that isn't guaranteed. Right. The Eurozone will continue to struggle. We've seen what's happened this week in Greece. We've heard today that the new Prime Minister has said that he will not default on Greece's loan payments, but he does want to renegotiate them. There is a big debate about whether he will be able to do that. There is a big debate of what will happen if he isn't able to do that and where Greece may end up. So as the Eurozone is the UK's largest trading partner, we have to be very aware of what that means for the UK as a whole, but also what that means in terms of employment. So if our biggest trading partner is suffering and a large part of your business is exporting to that Eurozone, that will affect the number of jobs that you can have, the number of people you employ, the type of work that they will be doing. Japan will come out of a long-term recession. It has been in a recession for a long time. We have seen through some very strict financial measures that is now starting to come out. It's also been affected by various different nuclear and natural disasters as well, but is now starting to show signs that it is coming out of recession. There are still people in Japan who have money to spend. They're still wanting to buy the various different luxury British products that are a big part of their culture. Unfortunately, the Chinese economy will continue to slow. It'll still be very big, but its drop in growth rate will in some way be compensated for by Japan, but no way will it will equal out. Our emerging markets, which are the areas that form the BRIC markets, Brazil, India, Russia, China, and then the vitamin nations, places like Vietnam, Venezuela, Nigeria, Angola, Argentina, those sorts of places, the next sort of 10 coming up, they're a bit of a mixed bag. The drop in the oil price and other commodities, they're likely to drop further, and it will affect those countries that have oil as one of their parts of their economy, where they're oil exporters. We'll see that in the UK as well, but you may see reductions in levels of growth in the economies where we're looking to export to. Disinflation will become widespread. This is where prices not only stagnate, but they fall. It becomes more difficult to produce things. People wait for the prices to drop, so they're not buying as much, and that can affect the way in which we are growing our various different businesses and their opportunities to employ people. Interest rates may rise in the US, but in Europe they may be cut, and they may remain stagnant in the UK. It's very difficult to find anyone who's predicting or wide levels of prediction of increased interest rates in the UK. US dollar will remain the global currency of choice, but there'll be a risk of further downturn. The risk of a further downturn is reducing. So we are moving into a situation where we are looking at economic growth across the board, but it will not be at the rates where it's been, where we saw China in the first part of this century growing very dramatically. Part of that is a problem, but when we come over into the UK, right, we have a multi-level economy, and this is part of our problem. The UK economy is predicted to grow by anything of up to 3% and continue to be multiple level. This means that despite building or trying to build a northern economic corridor from Liverpool to Hull, the majority of wealth generation will be in London and the South East, where for every 12 jobs that are created, there will be one job in the rest of the UK. That creates a multi-level economy at different levels in different areas. However, and businesses are going to be asking their employees to work smarter rather than harder, with more jobs being created in the area around Milton Keynes than in central London. I'm wondering if this is what you are experiencing within your part of the UK as well. So if anybody's sort of seeing that, where they have operations within London and the South East, and also operations outside of that area, are you seeing the growth being in that part, in the London and the South East? Or are you seeing it in other parts of the country? It'd be very interesting to see whether that actually fits with what you are experiencing. We're seeing employment and unemployment. Unemployment is dropping, employment is rising, but we have more people who are underemployed, so more people in part-time work. There is a knock-on effect of that, which we'll come on and discuss slightly in a few minutes. Interest rates may rise, may not rise. We don't really know yet, but that will affect the economy and the level of growth. Inflation is likely to remain fairly stagnant. We are becoming an increasingly diverse economy. I was told on Monday that diversity is the one thing that we have in common. We're all different in the UK, and we're having to look at the ways in which we work people. Sorry, the way in which people work in order to include more people in our workforces. We've just got Paul sort of saying the low levels of growth through recruitment, but based around our offices rather than restricted to London and the South East. It's very interesting that recruiting more office people rather than manufacturing people. We're based in Leeds here at the moment. We have more manufacturers in Leeds than any other part of the country, but they tend to be small to medium-sized businesses, and it is one of the areas that Leeds is trying to develop an awful lot more. Or unemployment and employment, we also need to look at education and how that is going to affect the jobs that people will be taking. And I'm currently looking at people entering the workforce and thinking about, are people who are entering the workforce either at 16, 18, or as a college or university graduate coming on into the workforce with the skills that you as employers need? It'd be very interesting whether you have that sort of experience of having almost to send employees back to college to get them up to the right level. Right. Okay, so it's interesting, Helen, you're looking at ways in which you can grow in London and the South East. That's maybe one of the things that happens with more organizations, is that's where the people are, that's where the skills are, we need to transfer or build those skill levels in the other parts of the country as well. The biggest risk factor for the UK economy, when you look across all of the organisations that I've been looking at, biggest risk factor is the result from the election and its impact that it may have on the relationship the UK has with the European Union. No one that I can find, except for a party called the UK Independence Party, or UKIP, thinks that leaving the UK would be a good idea for the United Kingdom. Sorry, leaving the European Union would be a good idea for the United Kingdom. Mainly because the EU is our biggest trading partner and there are so many EU citizens working in the UK and quite a lot of UK citizens working in Europe as well. There is a potential risk of people leaving the UK and going back to their country of origin and us losing those skills, and a big debate as to whether people leaving Europe and coming back to the UK would actually have the skills to replace those people. Our economy is so developed that we cannot exist without people from other countries coming and working here in the UK at all sorts of different levels, whether they're working in a hospital, whether they're working in a factory, on a farm, or even in the banks and insurance companies and law firms which in the City of London. We as a country do not have enough people with the right skills to populate all the jobs that we need doing within our economy. It is unfortunate, but that is the truth. You may have seen a program which the BBC put out recently, which was all about how what would happen if all the immigrants went home. Our economy needs the immigrants. We need to be part of Europe, is one of the big predictions. We need to be staying there. We need to make sure we have a strong, mutually beneficial relationship with Europe in order to make that work. Now, if we then look at what was going to happen in the workplace, we can see that unemployment is going to fall. There will be more people in work, but those people in work may not be fulfilling a traditional 9-to-5 type working structure. Even if they're working shifts, whereas a night shift, a day shift, there won't be people working in traditional working structures. There will be more part-time working, there will be more flexible working, more agency workers, more people paid for their skills rather than their time. There will, and this is one of the things that really struck with me, be the development or the further development of a 3-tier system of employment. This has come from PwC. They predict that this will be the situation in 2012. My own research in and around Leeds and Yorkshire suggests that we've already got this type of situation in Leeds. 3 types of employees. Trusted employees who are permanent workers within an organization will be the main group, and those will be the jobs that most people aim to get into. There will then be a second group, which are trusted contractors who are paid for their knowledge to work on a particular project, and then those leave. And we've seen a huge rise of that within some very knowledge-based industries, whether that is financial services, whether that's digital and creative media, whether that is in some areas manufacturing. It's certainly the case in construction. People are brought in to work on projects and then they leave. And that can also be within organizations that just want those people within a particular department at a particular time. The third type of employees are those temporary, transient, disposable people who work as agency workers who will be seen doing a job and then thanks very much, goodbye, and treated almost like a commodity. That will be the big mistake. Treating those people as commodities and dispensable will be the big mistake. Those people are as valuable as everyone else, and they need to be brought into and encouraged to participate in the organization. Now, if that 3-tier system of employment is something that you're already experiencing, I'd be very interested to hear about that. Very interested to hear how you're managing the development of the workforce. The recession has given people confidence that they do not, as jobs start to appear, need to go into full-time, Monday to Friday type employment. Whilst the recession was on, they were working as a temporary, they were working as a consultant, they'd work on an interim project, and they've realized that they can achieve the lifestyle that they want to achieve within that type of working arrangement. They don't need a full-time job in order to achieve the lifestyle that they want, and that will become more important to people as they go further forward, that lifestyles are important, not job titles. Part of that will also mean that we'll see changes in employee relations, right? employers and employees, because of the costs involved in going into an employment tribunal and the escalate, or that will involve, will be much keener to see disputes resolved much quicker at an earlier stages. Even employees will start to see themselves as a consultancy type of basis, so they'll want to be more productive. They want to be seen to be delivering to their employer. So workers will want to become more productive. That will see an increase in demands for proper performance management. And for every HR person, I know performance management by line managers is a big issue. Managers are very good at telling people when they've done something good, not necessarily very good at giving them the feedback that will encourage people and explain to people how they need to get up to what I call an experienced worker standard, a satisfactory standard of employment, performance. I'd like to see how people are resolving those sorts of issues within their own workforces. But one of the things that we have seen is a demand, or we'll see, is an increased demand for workplace democracy. So I get a bit tongue-tied there, right? But increased democracy in the workplace. We have seen the evolution of Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, people feeling freer to share their opinions, people being more involved in the generation and the reporting of news, even if you take the Arab Spring, but even events which are happening on the streets of the UK, the news media organizations are taking their footage and their reports from Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, or these sorts of places done by ordinary people. You're likely to see more people coming towards you and saying, like, this is not right, this is wrong, we've seen this. There will be more whistleblowers. There will be more people saying, we've done this wrong, we need to put it right. That workplace democracy is going to create more demands for HR people to give people the opportunity to be heard, and be heard in a structured, constructive way, rather than going straight onto Twitter and doing it in public. So the use of the internet, the use of the IT will increase. Sorry, there's lots of echo on the sound. Is that just with Helen, or is that something that lots of people are experiencing? Right. Okay. Right. Sound is fine. Okay. All right. We'll proceed. I'll try and speak a bit slower, and hopefully, it will the echo will decrease. Education and training. I've already mentioned that I am looking at the moment into the recruits that come from the education sector into employment and how they are satisfying the needs of employers. This is taking up the majority of my time at the moment, and looking at the issues that employers face in getting the right type of training within the education sector for the people who are going to be wanting to apply for jobs. I'd be interested in knowing about any experience that you have of engaging with the education sector. Has anybody engaged with the education sector when they're talking about the people they're likely to employ? No? No? Okay. So training, your employees are likely to be more interested in having more training. Apprentices training would all come under that sort of same topic. We're looking at the move away from degrees, graduates, into apprenticeships. We're looking at the quality of the courses that universities and schools are providing. This work-ready concept, how good are schools at creating work-ready school leavers, and what does that actually mean for an employer? What does work-ready mean? What does a work-ready 16-year-old look like? Probably not what I looked like when I was 16. Right? The employers are going to be looking for more training. There is reports that employees would stay with an employer that offered them training and turn down a job which offered them more money without the opportunity for training. Right? The skills developed, not pay rises, is more important to people. What is it that you're putting into me? What investment are you making into me? How are you building me for my future career? What is it that you are putting into me as an individual that will help me develop a career from hiring through to retiring? Hiring through to retiring is a big word with my business, Habicida. It's what we base our whole approach to employee management around, is building a relationship with employees that enable them to see a future that will take them from the point of hiring all the way through to retiring. Flexible working, I have mentioned that we will see more employees wanting to work flexibly, may not want to work the whole year, may not want to work the whole day or the whole week. Part of the reason for that is the cost of commuting. British people pay more to commute to work than any other person in Europe, and those fees are increasing. You'll probably find if someone can work at home, they will want to work at home. Find people looking for hot desking operations. You'll see an increase in organisations like Regis offering hot desking operations alongside their offices at motorway stations, these sorts of places, making it easier for people to work, and more managers will be involved in the management of results as a consequence of that, rather than managing time and attendance. I would say you'll see more people wanting to get involved in self-employment. In Leeds alone, 15 people a week registered with HMRC as a self-employed in some way or another. There's growing realization that an awful lot of jobs aren't actually employed, they are self-employed. From a building site to a hairdresser's to a bank to a building site, more people will be working on a self-employed basis. So with all of these various different predictions, what does that mean in terms of resolutions that HR people need to take? Well, here we are. I've summed these up. And I'll just give you a couple of minutes just to read through them, because rather than me tell you what you've got to do, I'd like to sort of present some ideas, but at the same sort of time, get your input into this at this stage. So just a couple of seconds really to have a read through those and make sure that what I put on there at least makes some sort of sense, or if there's anything that you think needs to be changed or you want me to clarify before, specifically want to clarify before we go forward. Yeah. Yeah. Right. We've got some people that are talking about having to introduce new employee management software. Done that a few times in my life. That's why I developed Abacida H2R. We've also got people talking about performance management in the information they provided us with. And also performance management. What else are we getting through? Oops, I just knocked the phone. Yep, satisfaction and reward if you're doing that. Okay, so got some people typing some things in as well, so we'll just get there. Sorry, Liz? The importance of change on the employee brand. Okay, importance of change, perennial thing. If you're not changing, you're not improving. Right, leadership capabilities, that is going to be a big, big issue going further forward. We have information which suggests that we have fewer qualified managers now in the UK than we did 10 years ago. Fewer managers are taking training in being a manager. That means that they are learning to manage by being managed and not always being managed in the right sort of way. Right, a very clear career path for employees, especially with new recruits. Couldn't agree with you more, Mark. Couldn't agree with you more. The whole concept behind hiring to retiring is having that career path, the potential for people to move through a career if that is what they choose to do, where they can jump up and stay on a particular point if that's what they want to do, but as long as that meets the needs of the organization as well. But we have to realize, I think, part of this building an attractive employment proposition means that people, when they apply for a job, can see that the job is long-term, or that they are going to be able to come out of it at a particular point with having things which they can take somewhere else. We were talking before the webinar started, Liz and myself, about the news with Apple today, where they've made $18 billion in 3 months. And news reports were just saying, yes, but they make it because they have these devices built in factories where the working conditions aren't too good. People are paid very little money, and that then impacts, well, do I want to work for an organization that treats its subcontractors in that sort of way? The same sort of thing affected Nike, Abercrombie and Fitch, The Gap a few years ago, what your organization does, the way in which it does it, the PR, your corporate social responsibility reputation, all impact the way in which people perceive your organization, and every customer is a potential employee. And it's not so much just, oh, I'm driving a fancy car because I work for this organization. It is what your friends and relatives think about the job that you do with the organization that you do. Right? Right. Something. Is that 2 or 3 apprentices? 2 or 3 apprentices, something we have never done before. It's well worth doing a recruiting apprenticeship. Never heard a bad thing about apprentices before. And part of this um, employment proposition, you'll see it more in apprentices than anything else. They don't have um, the knowledge of different employers, so they very often go with the organization which says something, for want of a better expression, something cool about them with their mates. Um, if I'm out on a Saturday night and somebody says to me, where is it you work? And they say a particular name, people go, oh, right, okay. Or, that's a cool place to work. That is going to be part of your employment proposition, not just the amount of work that people do, the amount that they're paid, all this sort of thing. I did a presentation last June to a group of school leavers and gave them the advice that when they went into an employer and for an interview, they should visit the toilets. Right? Now, I know I was 16, I was nervous, I need to go to the toilet as well, but that's not the reason you should go. The reason you should go is you should go and look at the toilets that people have, organizations have in their reception areas or available for their reception areas, because that is a good indication of how employers treat their employees. I have dealt with employers who think that the staff toilets, if they want a light bulb in there, it is the employee's responsibility to provide the light bulb for the staff room, the staff toilets. That type of attitude will not get you the best employees. It's about attracting the best employees. I like the idea of a people promise to connect, to communicate, and develop, and involve, and recognize our people, therefore gain their engagement and commitment to our organization. Engagement and commitment, I think, is the ultimate aim that we're looking for. People who trust the organization want to be part of the organization. It's a really good way of putting it. Your apprentices, you won't regret it, I am sure, as long as you manage them properly. And remember that you were once 16 as well. And life is a big challenge for them. I'm a school governor. I go into the school, and I was at a parents' evening a couple of weeks ago for sixth formers. The purpose of that parents' evening was where each sixth former sat down with their parents and their subject teachers and agreed smart performance objectives for the next term, which will get them through to their learning objectives of passing their exams. They're likely to arrive as apprentices fully understanding the idea of being given an objective and a performance standard and working to that. If you work on that basis as an employer, you'll end up with some very good performing apprentices. All right, in terms of, right, okay. It's interesting that you have a high level of dropout from application to interview, Paul, in terms of your apprentices. Very interested in hearing more about that. It should be interesting. The management of staff. We talked there about the management of school leavers and how giving them objectives because it's something that they're used to. You will find that your managers are managing people's skills and results rather than time and attendance much more. People will be attending work, they'll be doing the right work, but they will be expecting to have their skills and results managed in a much more way. That's all about part of giving people performance feedback. Making sure that it's constructive, enabling them to do a better job. No longer will people be prepared to say, well, I must be doing a good job because no one's told me I'm not. They will want to find ways in which they need to improve, and this performance management, getting managers trained to deal with those issues, performance issues, good performance issues and poor performance issues before it becomes emotional. And by that, I mean that if you have a good performer who's performing well, they're not getting recognized, they don't feel as if they're being rewarded, even a thank you, being used as a role model or an example to other employees, being asked to show how they do their work so the people can be brought up to their standard. If you don't have any feedback about that and how they can become better, right, that will become an emotional issue when somebody says, I'm not valued, I will look for another job. The other side of that is that the employee thinks they're doing a good job. They're not doing a good job, but the manager doesn't actually deal with it until it becomes an emotional issue, and they go like, I can't deal with it anymore, get them out of the organization, don't want them here tomorrow, and a big check has to be written. Right? Performance management saves businesses money, and that is what we need to get across to managers. And if you have a performance manager's 18th of February? Webinar on the 18th of February, all about performance management. 25th of February. Who's doing that one? Joanne Vo's doing that one. That will be well worth sitting in on, right? Employees wanting feed, right? Oh, I'm being told I've got to move on. I've got to move on. I've got to move on. Right? Okay. There'll be more about listening so that disputes can be dealt with more easily, setting up this workplace democracy, having a system for doing that, developing people from hiring to retirement, which came out in the points that you've been talking about as well. I'll deal with that committed apprenticeship thing. Celebrating the difference is all that we have in common. Making sure that we can employ people from all sorts of different cultural and ethnic groups. When I lived overseas in Hong Kong, I had 40 people. There must have been about 30 different nationalities. We celebrated every national day, every national feast that we could, put a few inches on the waistline every so often. But it was about celebrating the differences and having a fun and joke about them as well. The World Cup and all those sorts of things were very active times, and create work that fits with and facilitates a lifestyle. We have to look upon work as helping people to achieve the lifestyle aims that they want. If they can see that happening, they'll be more committed to your organization because they see the result for them rather than just simply the accumulation of money. The Protestant worth ethic is seeing something of a dying down as people say, okay, I want to be able to take these holidays, I want to be able to spend this time with my children, I want to be able to have this type of lifestyle. Can you help me do that? The long commutes may see those sorts changing. We may see people moving out to the provinces from the capital in the southeast. We will see more people wanting to drop their children off at school and pick them up, those types of things. And more schools are going to have to facilitate that as well. I am very interested in the issue about finding committed apprentices and how we encourage people to be committed. It's obviously going to be a two-way street, but very interested to find out more about that. But I am being told, I'm being given the wind-up signal, but if you have any questions about it, you have some contact details for me there, the two Twitter accounts that I operate, one about HR, one about learning at work, also on LinkedIn. But if you have any questions now, that would be very interesting to see more about those. But thank you very much for your time, and the comments have been very interesting. If it's all right with people, I would like to come back to them on some of those. And right, so we've got some people typing, so we will just wait for those to come up. And right, looks like we've got quite a few questions coming in. Right. All right. I maybe need to go on that next webinar. Thank you very much, Rachel. I'm glad you liked it. And Flora, thank you. Thank you very much. Right. You'll be able to download the slides that I've used. If you want any more information about any of the predictions or the resolutions, we can put something together and link it all. I'll put some things onto LinkedIn or wherever. This point from Lucy, I think many of the apprentices came for interview because they've been told to attend, not coming because they wanted to, thus high dropout. Yeah, that's a very interesting point. And we see that I've interviewed people who've come for jobs from the job centre and told, well, I've been told I've got to come for an interview, otherwise I'm going to lose my benefits. We perhaps need to do more about educating people about the jobs and getting more people involved, but I would take that back to the schools that I'm talking to at the moment and see what feedback they have on that point, Lucy, and see what we can come up with on that. There may be, you can contact me. I'd be interested to see how any ideas that you have on how we can get around that, and I'll certainly take it back to the schools and the Education Authority and see how we can cope with that. It's really good feedback. Thank you very much. Right. Thank you very much for everyone for participating. Really enjoyed it. Great comments. Really appreciate those, and hope you find it valuable. And look forward to next time. Oh, got to pass it later.
Thanks, Michael, and thanks, everybody. You've hopefully got a couple of bits of information there with regards to the next webinar. So very interesting discussion. Look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you, everybody. Very good. Thanks.